Welcome back to another Shamshir Sound video. Today we're checking out the free clone, the Oxford Inflator ripoff. We're gonna see if it's just as good, if it's worth checking out. This is a free download in VST3 format just for Windows. It has been updated. It's been out for a while, but it just wasn't under my radar. And I love Oxford Inflator, so I thought why not pin this next to Oxford Inflator and see if it's similar, if it's worth downloading. If you guys are enjoying these quick videos, remember to smash up the like button and let's get started. The download link is in the video description. It'll take you over to the developer's GitHub where you can download the VST3 file, and you just have to copy and paste that over in your VST3 folder and add your plugins like usual. The developer did note there can be some inefficiencies with the plugin, and Performance Monitor had this comparable or slightly faster than Oxford Inflator, so they're just about the same. It's not a CPU hog by any means. Just keep in mind that if you experience any bugs, again, your mileage may vary. I'm using VST3 for both of these. I've used Oxford Inflator for a long time, and this is a big room track that I have for you guys to download. In the past Firebeats project, there's a lot going on with this, and I actually already had Oxford Inflator on the master. Very similar, but from a UI perspective, I do like Oxford Inflator more. Yes, this is free, but just because it's free doesn't mean that it can go on without any criticism. So pinning it next to Oxford Inflator has its effect in. So here we have a bypass knob, we have clip. By default, Oxford Inflator, I believe, has it on. This one, you're gonna have to make sure you turn it on if you want it to be 0 dB clip. One thing I didn't like were these sliders. You can't double click, you can't do anything other than keep in mind what you're setting it to. It says 12 dB up at the top left in FL, but this will be 0 dB. There's also the input. Again, this is in the middle at 0 dB. Same thing, you can't adjust the values, but you can with Oxford Inflator. So that's one nice thing. I can just double click, be like 0 or minus 0.1. You can get very granular. One thing I like about Oxford Inflator is when you hover over the sliders or buttons, you get tooltips. So you don't have that with this one, but again, it's not that complicated, so we can forgive it for that. Another thing I'd say that's much better is the meters here that align with the input and output. Here we have them on the left and right, and if we play back this project just muted, it's really not giving me the information that I really need. Because with Oxford Inflator, they talk about this in their manual, how sometimes that sweet spot is when you get it to just trigger 0 dB. Just to like touch clipping, and there, as we saw, just touching the clipping and activating the plugin every now and then. But you're not gonna get that sort of feedback with this. I mean, if I crank this up, that's probably gonna sound abysmal. Like I'm not even gonna unmute that. That's probably gonna sound like terrible. So you see what I mean? Even the meter right there is pretty much useless to us. But again, coming back to this effect at 100, I don't know why default effect was at 100 because effect should be at 0. Now, I'm not a big fan of these, like the dials. I would have preferred to see just 4 sliders: input slider, effect slider, curve, output. And if you think about it, the sequence of this from a UI, a UX perspective makes a lot of sense. Left to right, in to out, working with your input, then the effect that you apply, then the aggression of the curve, right? Curve being at 0 is like neutral, sounds great on pretty much anything. As you crank it up, more aggressive. As you crank it down, more lenient. But with this, it's kind of mixed up. So the UI could do a little bit more in terms of the UI. This meter is just, I'm just like upset with that meter, right? It's just like comedy at this point, but whatever. Let's forget about the meter. I do like this. I'll give it a +1 for these lights here. One thing I would say is it would be nice if I could double click these. So you cannot, you do have to just, the motion with them, there's really no weight. So with these being the same, pretty much, let's first play back Sonox Inflator, copy, and then we'll go back to normal Inflator. Now let's just go crazy with this 100% and 100%, and let's just see what happens to it. This is obviously unrealistic, but let's just see what happens with them cranked up all the way. I still like Oxford Inflator more. So let's isolate just the kick and we'll go from Oxford to the free version. There's not a big difference, but what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna crank this up 3 dB just to see how it's handling the different volumes. Again, let's start with Inflator. This is definitely not too bad for a free download. The fact that the performance is comparable, the UI needs some work. For free, you really can't complain. So let's see what it's like on the lead now. I've put similar settings on both of these. I already had Oxford Inflator on the lead. So let's go ahead and loop the lead, just 4 bars, and we'll alternate between the two. First with Oxford Inflator. I think in this example, we're finally seeing the power of Oxford Inflator because this is a heavily distorted sound. There's a lot going on with this lead, and I think this is finally showcasing, especially with this band split mode, something about it after listening a couple times. Now, again, maybe it's placebo. Someone correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think I'm hearing a little bit more warmth, like something that's just a little bit more pleasing in the low mids. And it could be that this band split is responsible for that. One feature that's missing from this. My feedback for the free version would be to see effect sliders, curve sliders, rather than the dials. Also, if possible, some tooltips would be great to explain to someone who maybe doesn't know Oxford Inflator or just wants to see some information. It always helps newcomers when they just want to go over a plugin, maybe they haven't used it in a while, and it just gives you some feedback, right? It's good to see that. This big thumbs down to this meter here because it's not useful at all. It doesn't really correspond in the way that I'm getting with this input. For all intents and purposes, it's pretty much useless to see this. I'd rather see this plugin just be wider and then just have input, effect, curve, and output. Because ultimately, it's shamelessly saying it's trying to copy it. So why not at least just, for the most part, copy the UI. Oxford Inflator, of course, you guys can check out a more detailed video I did on it. I give it like an easy 9 out of 10. It's definitely not snake oil. It can be used on individual tracks on the master. It's so versatile, but the free version, for what it's worth, if you can't afford any plugins, then yes, sure, give this a try. The performance seems to be okay. It seems to be on par. It doesn't seem to be excessively using CPU or RAM when I checked. Most of my complaints are just minor, minimal, and you can still use this on different tracks. So is it worth a download? I would say yes. I would give this a 6.5 out of 10. I think that's generous. I think it has the right intention with some more polish and some more refinement with the user interface. Could have something really beautiful on our hands. So if you guys enjoyed this video, remember to smash up the like button, smash the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and that way you're alerted of the uploads. Let me know what you guys think about the Sonnox Oxford Inflator ripoff. Do you guys like it? Do you guys hate it? Have you compared it to Oxford Inflator? Do you have Oxford Inflator? I'd like to know what you guys experienced with this plugin in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.